This might be a pretty good spot to build out a new van. What do you guys think? Talk a little bit more about my thoughts on the whole van build process and maybe using this space as a place to convert a new van a little bit later in this video. But first, I want to discuss a little bit about the cost of buying a new vehicle versus buying something that is used. And when I say new, I mean new-ish. So maybe brand new right off the lot, fresh out of the factory, or maybe it's a couple years old with 30,000 miles on it, but something that's newer that you're probably going to have to finance, that at least I would have to finance, versus buying something cash outright, maybe $3,000, $4,000, maybe it's 10 years old, 15 years old, something in that area. And I guess what is the cost for that peace of mind that everybody says that you get for driving around in a newer vehicle versus driving around in something that is used? And back in 2014, I bought this vehicle. This is my 2003 Honda Element. Those of you that have been following along will know that I have been traveling out of this thing and driving around the country all over the place for the past 3 years and living out of it. I turned it into a camper and I've been doing that. And this video is particularly relevant at this point for me right now because I am in the process of trying to pick out a new vehicle, trying to pick out my next camper van, whatever I'm going to build out, and trying to decide if I want to buy something that's really used and something that I can afford cash, or finance something that's quite a bit newer, and I guess break down the differences between the two different options here, and I guess how much it's going to cost me, like I said before, for that peace of mind. And when I bought the Element back in July of 2014, I started a spreadsheet. And I really like spreadsheets. I'm kind of a huge spreadsheet dork. It's really helpful for situations like this. And I have tracked every single dollar that I've spent on the Element since the day that I bought it on this spreadsheet. That doesn't include things like insurance or gas. Those are things that you're gonna spend on any vehicle, but things that are specific to the Element. So maintenance, the cost of the vehicle itself, even registration fees, things like that. It's all tracked on here. So for the first part of this video, and to break down and to kind of give at least my perspective on how much it's costed me to own a used car, I want to talk about what I've spent on it. And for those of you out there that are maybe interested in getting an Element, I get that a lot. A lot of folks will send me emails saying that they're interested in buying an Element, they're looking for an Element, they want to know what to expect, any issues that they might have, things like that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. So let's get started here. The Element is a 2003 model year DX trim. It's pretty basic overall, and at the time I bought it with 75,000 miles on it back in 2014. That was really low miles for the model year. It really hadn't been driven very much, and I was taking them to mechanics doing that. I looked at a bunch of different vehicles, and I had a mechanic that I was kind of bringing them all to look at and to kind of give the once over, do an inspection on it, just a brief little check to see if there's anything that really stood out to him. And I remember what he said after he finished looking at the Element. He said, "Nate, do not let this one get away from you. Pay the owner whatever they want for it. Just be sure to get this. This is a great vehicle. It's going to do exactly what you want." And he was right. It really has. It's been an amazing vehicle over the past 4.5 years at this point. And obviously it has not been completely problem-free. Every used vehicle that you buy is going to have its share of issues from time to time. Even if you buy a new vehicle, it more than likely over 5 years is going to have a few issues here and there. And I'm going to go over a little bit on this spreadsheet here about what I've spent and the biggest things that I've spent in terms of repairs, in terms of maintenance, things like that, and then things that stick out to me here as I go through it. When I bought the Element, I paid just under $6,000 for it, and since that day in July of 2014, I've spent just under $13,000 total on the Element. So that includes all the things, like I said before, maintenance issues. I had some ball joints done, lower ball joints were done not too long ago. Some of the maintenance and repair things I've done myself and been able to save a little bit. I've even made a little estimator here to show how much I've saved on labor costs, probably somewhere around $800 on labor costs that I've saved just by doing certain projects myself. I did the AC condenser van myself, serpentine belt, just little things like that. Things that aren't too complicated, but that I'm comfortable doing. And then some of the bigger ticket things, the bigger issues that I've had, I've taken it to a mechanic. I was in a pretty tight situation where I needed to get to work. I just started a new job. I made a video about this back in 2016. I was in New Orleans and the Element broke down in a parking lot. I was at a grocery store parking lot. It was just the starter that had gone bad, but I needed to take it to a mechanic to get it taken care of. It's actually really difficult to access the starter on a Honda Element as well, so I don't think I was going to be able to fix it in the Winn-Dixie parking lot. So I took it to a Honda dealership, and I definitely got ripped off, and that cost is in here. It's reflected in here. Maybe something you could avoid if you weren't trying to get to a new job that you just started 2 days beforehand. But things like that are in here. A couple of times I put new tires on. That's going to cost about $1,000 total over the past 4.5 years. And then had the AC condenser go bad. I had to have that replaced. That was a pretty expensive fix. There was a little leak in it that was leaking over time, and within a month of refilling the Freon, it would stop working, and that was kind of an issue. So that's something that I spent a lot of money on. Also, another major problem that happened, the ignition failed at one point. For some reason, I could just not turn the key anymore, rather. I could not start up the Element, and that's a common Honda issue. That's something that happens a lot with these ignitions. Something that probably should have been recalled by Honda, but just never was for whatever reason. Just, I guess Honda didn't really want to have to pay for all the recalls or whatever it was, but that's a pretty common issue, something that a lot of Element owners have to deal with. So that was another thing that was pretty expensive, and that's kind of what's adding to all of these costs. When I say I bought it for $6,000 but ended up spending $13,000, I mean, that's the bulk of what's going on here. You know, other things, there's parts and stuff like that, little random things, but those are the big things, the big issues that I've had. I guess I should specify that I do a lot of miles on the Element. I've done pretty much 100,000 miles in the last 4.5 years with this vehicle, and this is the amount of money that I've spent, partially as a result of doing so many miles and as a result of driving it so much. If you didn't drive it at all, you probably wouldn't have spent as much on maintenance and repairs. If you're only doing 5,000 to 7,000 miles a year going to work and back, and you're kind of staying put in the same area, you're not going to need to spend as much money on maintenance and repairs as I have. But that being said, that's kind of my lifestyle. I do move around a lot and been crisscrossing the country quite a few times over the past few years, and I guess that's kind of how it goes. And for me, it's been a great vehicle. The Element has worked out. It's done exactly what I wanted it to do, and hopefully it'll keep doing that for me into the future, and then for whoever ends up getting it from me after I decide to move on to something newer, which is probably going to be pretty soon. But that's kind of where I am with that. And $13,000 over 4.5 years, that equates to what? $240 a month on monthly costs for a vehicle that I put a lot of miles on every year. And if I had bought a brand new vehicle, there's no way that I'm financing that vehicle for that same price. And yes, I would have the peace of mind to probably not have to worry about the ignition going bad or the AC condenser failing in the first 5 years, but it's also possible that one of those things does go bad and that you do have to spend an additional $1,000 on repairs. Plus, you have to do your maintenance, your fluids, your oil changes, you have to do your tires, things like that. That's all going to add up. Those are costs that exist regardless of what vehicle you have. And so you're looking at a $20,000 CR-V back in 2014. Say I had bought that instead, brand new, right off the lot, and I would have spent a lot more money on that overall than I did on this. I would have had to pay interest on that loan, and then all the other things that I just listed. I mean, I feel like it's going to equate to $400 a month, not $240 a month. So quite a bit more to have that quote-unquote peace of mind, which is that's a big cost. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit more reliable, that you might have to put 15,000, 20,000 miles a year on, you're probably going to want to spend a little bit more money, and then you're getting up to that $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 area. And a lot of the time, folks don't have that amount of money to just put down cash on a vehicle. They want to finance it instead. They're kind of forced into financing it, and that's kind of where I am at this point as well. I'm looking at upgrading, getting a bigger van, something that I can build like a tiny house in the back of, something that I can have for years to come, and I'm probably going to have to finance it. Unfortunately, I don't have $20,000, $30,000 just sitting around that I can put into a van, but I kind of want something nice that I can use for years to come. And you know, I guess the other option would be to try to find a used 1990s G20 maybe, or a Ford van, something with like a conversion high top on it, maybe $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and then build that out from there. But for some reason, I am not convinced of the reliability of those vans as compared to the Element. I was able to do it with the Element because SUVs are just cheaper than vans, period. Regardless of what model year it is, it doesn't matter what it is. And so they're going to be cheaper. They don't hold their value as well. I mean, Honda did for a little bit, but I got a good deal on this Element, and I was able to run with it. And I don't know if I'm going to have that luck again with an old van. I'm going to have to get something with a lot of miles on it, I'm gonna have to probably do a lot of work on it myself, which would be a great learning experience, but at the same time, not something that I'm really comfortable investing thousands of dollars into converting. The Element, it was pretty cheap to convert the Element. I didn't do the ceiling, I didn't do the floor, I didn't do paneling on the walls, there's no insulation, there's no fantastic fan, none of that is going into the Element here. All I have is a solar panel and a pretty simple wooden conversion and a bed in the back, and then this cool desk setup here, which was really easy to do as well. But generally speaking, I didn't invest as much in the Element, I never had to, so when I'm looking at putting that much money into my next van, maybe 3 times the amount of money that I've spent on the Element into my next van, in addition to the cost of the van itself, I'm not really left with any other option other than to finance something, trying to get a high top cargo van and then going from there. And I'm going to look for the best deal that I can, but I think that is more than likely what's going to end up happening. And I don't know, I hope this video was helpful. I've been talking a lot, just kind of rambling off a lot of information here, and it's just kind of my thought process. This is what I'm going through at this point as I'm considering getting something that is newer, as I'm considering using this space here that I have. I'm in my friend's backyard. I know I mentioned this in the last video in San Antonio, and they've got a really great space here. They have tools, they have some experience. I feel like I could use this opportunity to hang out here for a couple months and to build out a really awesome conversion. And I don't know, part of me really wants to pull the trigger and do it. I'm not sure if it's going to happen just yet. I definitely got to think about it a little bit more, but we'll see what happens. I guess that pretty much sums it up for this video. Not really a whole lot going on in my life at this point. I've been hanging out here in San Antonio. It's been a lot of fun. The Kodiak, just a little update on that. It's working out really well for me so far. I've been able to edit videos on it for like full videos, not having any problems with it so far. I'm gonna do a video kind of going into more detail about it in the future. Probably one of the next upcoming videos, maybe the next one or the one after that. Have a little project plan. I'm gonna really test it and push it to its limits, I think, so I'm looking forward to giving that a try. Calendars, the Element Van Life calendars, a lot of them have sold. Thank you to those of you who purchased calendars. There are a few left though, so there's a link in the description below if anyone else out there is interested in picking up a calendar. They are still available. Main takeaway from this video is buying a used car for $5,000–$6,000 like I did with the Element a lot of the time can end up being a lot cheaper than buying something newer and financing it over 5 years. And you know, I think that there are problems that exist, and I've had problems with the Element. It's something that you have to expect. But if you pick out a vehicle that's relatively reliable and that has good ratings, and you do your research and you find a good vehicle, take it to a mechanic, have them check it out like I did with the E here, it can work out for you really well. I've done a lot of miles. Most people don't do nearly the amount of miles that I do, and I think 99% of the time or 95% of the time it's the best option. And obviously for me, like I said earlier in this video, it's probably not going to work out for my next van, but it might. I'm going to keep my eyes peeled. Maybe I'll find something used that's in great shape, that fits the right size requirements, something that I feel comfortable investing into and building a camper van into, but we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you all in the next one.